There's a happy feeling nothing in the world can buy when we pass around the coffee and the pumpkin pie. Hey everybody, welcome to my kitchen. I'm Sarah Ann Vale. Today we're making pumpkin pie from scratch. Please take your time with this. My favorite times to make pumpkin pie are when I have a holiday or a day off where I just get to enjoy every step of the way. That's what makes it really, really good. The first and most important ingredient is our pumpkin. I have a sugar pie pumpkin here. If you're not able to find pumpkins close to you, a can of pumpkin is totally fine. Just make sure that in your can, there's nothing but pumpkin. No extra sugar, no extra salt, none of that nonsense. We just want pure pumpkin flavor. First, I'm gonna cut my pumpkin in half. I like to cut my base to stem. Serrated knives are necessary for things with tough skins. Look at those beautiful seeds. It's like a monster. We're gonna scoop out all of those seeds. I just use a regular spoon. Don't worry if there's any extra fibers left inside of your pumpkin. Those are all gonna bake down, and we want as much pumpkin flesh as possible in our pie. Guts. The squish feels so good. You just need to scoop enough out to where all the seeds are gone. All of this is what's gonna become the filling for our pumpkin pie. Don't worry about any of that goopy spaghetti-like stuff. It's all gonna cook down and we wanna eat all of it. Don't throw these seeds away. In order to get extra gunk off of our pumpkin seeds, we're gonna soak these in water. That's gonna get all that extra pumpkin flesh off the seeds and they'll be really easy to clean later. We're gonna bake our pumpkins, cut side down, on a cookie sheet lined with tin foil, just to help them steam a little bit. I'm gonna create like a little pumpkin tent. Doesn't have to be perfect, but you do want some space. You don't wanna tightly wrap your pumpkins. You want some air in there to help your pumpkins steam through. We're gonna bake these in a 350-degree oven for about an hour and a half or until they're nice and tender. While our pumpkins are baking, we're actually gonna prepare our crust for our pie. In here, I have 1 cup of gluten-free AP flour and a 1/2 cup of almond flour. You can do whatever flour combination you like. I like the almond for the nuttiness and it's a little stronger, and I like the AP for that nice flaky crust. We're gonna add some texture. I have a 1/4 cup of pumpkin seeds that we're gonna cut right in as we cut our butter into our crust. I have 3/4 cup of butter that I've cubed here, the same exact way we cubed the butter in our peach pie episode or our lemon bar episode. This is the exact same recipe that we've modified for pumpkin pie. Everybody in the pot, I have a salted Irish butter. If you're using an unsalted butter, add like a 1/2 teaspoon of sea salt. Now we cut in. We've given our butter a head start to be cut into our flours, and I'm gonna add a little something special. Pumpkin pies for parties, right? I'm gonna add 2 tablespoons of bourbon. Just gonna eyeball it. Glug, glug, glug. We're using bourbon because it's scrumptious with pumpkin and it's all going to evaporate when you bake it in the oven. Anytime you use an alcohol in place of water, it's gonna keep gluten from forming in your pastry. Whether you use a wheat flour or any other flour, your pastry is going to be tender. If you take your time with this, your flakes are going to be layered better. If you rush, it's not going to be incorporated the way you want it to be. And we're supposed to enjoy this. Pies are for celebrating. It's like an infinity gauntlet. I feel powerful. Ribbony. Now that our pastry is all incorporated, we're gonna press it into our pie plate. The pumpkin seeds are so pretty. They're that beautiful green color. Then that rich pumpkin orange in the middle is gonna make it so festive. This might take a little time and that's okay. Just in case your pastry is a little sticky, it might be because the butter's warm. If you need to pop it in the fridge for like 5 minutes, that's okay too. The most important part of this is making sure the bottom is nice and even. If some of the pieces of your pastry are thicker than others, they're gonna bake at different rates. And we do want our pie to bake consistently. I'm just gonna crimp my edges. It makes it look pretty and helps it brown in the oven. Look how beautiful. We're gonna let this rest in the fridge. Give it a rest, give it a good 30 minutes. Our pumpkins are baking anyway. Go enjoy some popcorn or a glass of wine and turn on Hocus Pocus. While we made our crust, our pumpkin seeds have been soaking in some water. All that yummy goop falls right off of the seeds. They get nice and clean. My pumpkin seeds are all rinsed and drained. There's still even a couple pieces of pumpkin flesh on there. That's okay. When they bake in the oven, it's gonna be scrumptious anyway. Because we're doing a sweet pie, I like to do a savory pumpkin seed. That way we get a little of both. I'm gonna add just a little bit of olive oil to my tinfoil lined baking sheet. Just enough to cover the bottom. Add my pumpkin seeds. If there's still a little moisture on them, that's okay. Toss them in your oil. That's gonna help the salt stick. I'm gonna season my pumpkin seeds nice and simple. I just have seasoning salt. You can do whatever you want. You can do cinnamon and sugar. You can do regular salt. Garlic salt is really good. Give them a shake. We're gonna set these aside because we're gonna pop them in the oven the same time we bake our pie. Our pumpkins have been baking for about 90 minutes. They're all tender. We're gonna take them out of the oven and let them cool completely before we add them to our filling. Smells like fall. Just in case you're not a pumpkin person, you can always substitute your pumpkin for 2 or 3 sweet potatoes. Just so you know, you'll want to bake those sweet potatoes at 425 degrees for about 45 minutes or until fork tender. While our pumpkins are cooling, we're going to prepare our spices. This is what's going to take your pumpkin pie to the next level. If you go out and get some pumpkin pie spice, that's fine, but your pumpkin pie is not going to be anything more than basic. I'm going to hand grate each and every one of my spices, and that's what's going to make your pumpkin pie extraordinary. For my pumpkin pie spice, I have fresh turmeric, whole nutmeg, whole clove, fresh ginger, whole allspice, and cinnamon sticks. We're going to perfume our sugar with our spices so that it can perfume the rest of our pumpkin. In here, I have 3/4 of a cup of unbleached cane sugar and a 1/2 teaspoon of sea salt. If we're gonna take the time to prepare fresh pumpkin for our pumpkin pie, I like the unbleached sugar better than a brown sugar because we wanna make sure that all of that pumpkin flavor is unmasked. If you're using a canned pumpkin, I think brown sugar is even better. So I'd use about 3/4 of a cup of a brown sugar if you're doing a canned pumpkin. To our sugar, we're going to add all of our spices, starting with cinnamon. I have a microplane grater here. If you want, you can use a spice grinder to grind all your spices. You can also use pre-ground, but again, we're not making basic pumpkin pie. We're making the best diet-free pumpkin pie. I'm literally going to hand grate my cinnamon stick right into my sugar. I'm going for about a teaspoon to a teaspoon and a half. My house smells like a holiday. And yours will too. We're also gonna add a 1/2 teaspoon of clove. Look how pretty they are. They're like itty bitty little wooden roses. You can literally throw whole clove into ciders, mulled wines. These guys are little, so please take your time, watch your fingers. The reason we're grating everything separately instead of just having like a pumpkin pie spice blend is then you get to celebrate each individual ingredient for what makes it special. Instead of blurring all those lines, we want to celebrate the individual specialness, just like people. Now for our allspice. You don't have to go fast. It makes sense that you would want to do spices this way. The same way you want freshly grated cheese, you want freshly ground and grated spices. Nutmeg. About a 1/2 teaspoon. Now we're gonna prepare our turmeric and our ginger. I'm gonna use the back of a spoon to peel my turmeric the same way I would ginger. Look at that color. Turmeric enhances other spices. That's why it's such a great ingredient in a lot of different curries. Not only is it gonna enhance all of the other spices we have in our pie, the stunning orange color is gonna make our beautiful orange pumpkin pies pumpkin pie orange. Just so you know, turmeric naturally helps your body fight infections. I can't have pumpkin pie without fresh ginger. Even if you use pre-ground for all of your other spices, please use fresh ginger and whole nutmeg. We're gonna add our ginger. If we're doing fresh ginger, I use about a tablespoon. If you're using a pre-ground, you'll wanna use 1 to 2 teaspoons. The other nice thing about having fresh ginger and fresh turmeric is they add texture and moisture to your pie.
The curcumin in turmeric is a powerful anti-inflammatory compound.
All our spices are in there. Ooh, you want all those ginger juices. Get all those ginger juices. We're gonna have dessert. It's gonna be chock full of superfoods and flavor. I'm gonna mix everything up. Our sugar is also gonna soften our ginger and our turmeric. I'm literally shocked by the smell. While our sugar and spices mingle, we're gonna grab our pumpkins. Ooh! We've given her the time to completely cool. Has that nice toasty color. Yes! A little bit of pumpkin caramelization. If you want, you can scoop your pumpkin out. I like to peel it. That way I'm gonna get every ounce of pumpkin possible into our pie. Go slow with this. If you try and go too fast, you're gonna lose some pumpkin in there. Our pumpkins are all peeled. Look at that color. That's the color pumpkin is supposed to be. Orange. We're gonna add our pumpkin into our sugar, salt, and spices. And that sugar is gonna help break down the pumpkin as well, just like macerating fruit. If you really wanted to, you could pre-puree your pumpkin in a food processor or a blender. You could also use a potato masher. I think we spend a lot of time taking care of our beautiful pumpkins and baking them from fresh. So why wouldn't we keep all of that yummy pumpkin texture in there? Our pumpkin's all incorporated into our sugar and spices. We're gonna add a couple eggs to keep it together. Mix our eggs in. This is another reason why it's really important that our pumpkin was completely cooled. If you put raw eggs into warm pumpkin, you're gonna get pumpkin scrambled eggs. For the creamy element, we're gonna add 1.5 cups of half and half. You can use regular half and half that comes from a cow. I actually have dairy-free vegan half and half. This is almond milk and coconut cream. We also have the almond flour in our crust, so it's gonna go together really, really well. We've got a lot of different textures that need to come together, and we don't wanna rush it. I can see all the flecks of all of the hand-grated spices in there and that vibrant orange pumpkin color. Now we get to fill our crust. Our pie crust is at a good rest in the fridge. Look at her. She's well set. I just love the way all those pumpkin seeds look. I've also done this with pecans or other crunchy bits, but there's something special about having the pumpkin seeds in the pumpkin pie. Be very careful. Fill her right up. Scrape all the other bits in there. Gently spread her out. It's gonna relax as we bake it in the oven, but it's good to encourage it. We all need encouragement. Now we get to bake her up. We're going to start our pumpkin pie in a 425-degree oven. We're gonna bake it for 15 minutes. Then we're gonna turn our oven down to 375 and let it cook for about 45 minutes or until she's just jiggly in the center. We're gonna use the same 425-degree oven to bake our pumpkin seeds, so we're gonna tuck our pumpkin seeds right underneath our pie. It's been about 15 minutes. We're gonna take out our pumpkin seeds. They're golden. Now we're gonna turn our oven down to 375. I'm gonna check it around 30 minutes, but it's gonna take about 45 minutes to complete. Homemade whipped cream is so easy to make. I'm gonna add 8 ounces of heavy cream right to my bowl. To our 8 ounces of heavy cream, we're gonna add just 2 tablespoons of maple syrup. Since we're doing pumpkin, we wanna add more flavors to celebrate the pumpkin. The other nice thing about doing your own homemade whip is you get to use whatever dairy element or pretend dairy element and whatever sweetener you want to use. Gonna lock it in and crank her up and start on low and gradually give her a little more juice all the way up to 10. We're gonna check for stiff peaks. Perfect. That's the texture that you want. As it gets closer and closer to the texture that you want, take your time, taste test, because once you take this past whipped cream, that's gonna be butter, which wouldn't be so bad either. From my kitchen to yours, this is my heart. I'm so excited for you guys to try this recipe. Let me know what pies you guys want to see next. Let me know how working with fresh pumpkin or sweet potato work for you. Subscribe, and I will see you next week with another diet-free recipe.